What do you think about that? This is now multiple people this week suggesting, there are people who have worked in the league, who are covering the league, scouting the league, that are suggesting that the Bears should use Fields as the trade bait and not the number one pick.
No, you should not do that.
All right, we'll be back.
I mean, no, like I don't get it. Listen, I watched every single throw of Bryce Young in college. Every single throw. I'm an Alabama fan. I watch every Alabama game. I saw every throw that Bryce Young made. He is a great talent. He is absolutely worthy of the number one pick, should it be a quarterback, right? I think he's better than CJ Stroud. I think he's definitely better than Will Levis. I think he is better than those three. He's the best out of those three quarterbacks, right? And Anthony Richardson, because he's going to be a first-round quarterback, it looks like, too. He's the best of those four quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that if people are already saying that, like, Caleb Williams is better than that, Drake May might be better than that from North Carolina. Those are going to be the two guys next year.
Sure.
And then we also had on this station, had Mel Kiper Jr. on with Waddle and Sylvie and say that if Justin Fields was in this draft, he would be number one. He would be better than them. Here's the biggest difference to me. The biggest difference is you've got one guy that's 6 foot, 194, and you've got one guy that's 6'3", 228. Like, and that's not saying that Bryce Young can't put on muscle. He can't grow, though. He's not growing anymore. He's not going to go get leg extenders put in and get like 4 inches taller. I like Bryce Young, but I have a feeling that when he gets to the league, if he struggles the way Justin Fields did when he first came to the league, that you're going to get the same conversations. The same conversations you're going to get about CJ Stroud, right? That it's going to be, hey, he was in the perfect system. He had great wide receivers. He had a great offensive line. Now, I'll tell you that Bryce Young did not have good wide receivers last year. He didn't have wide receivers up to the caliber that like that Tua had or that Jalen had when he was at Alabama. Like their leading receiver was their running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Like that's not how you're supposed to be running an offense if you wanted to highlight the quarterback. But he still had a great year, right? But you already have a quarterback that's been learning, that's progressed this year, that I think that for me, I saw enough to say that good, build around him. I think that you still have the opportunity. I don't think that Ryan Poles or Matt Eberflus are going anywhere if Justin Fields has a bad year. If you go out and let's say you give him every opportunity, you rebuild the offensive line, you trade for T. Higgins, you draft a wide receiver in the first round. He's got all the weapons. He's got a healthy Darnell Mooney. He's got a Chase Claypool that's been in the system now for a year. He's got a full offseason of throwing with him. If you give him every opportunity, just like the Dolphins did with Tua and the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, and he still hasn't progressed, and he's putting up the same numbers, and he's still running for like 150 yards a game because he's too nervous to throw or whatever, then move on. I don't think that ownership is going to move on from Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus after next year if Fields still has a bad year.
So this is now the second time this week we have heard an expert, a draft scout, suggest that the Bears should trade Fields and that Bryce Young is the guy because Bryce Young reminds them of a young Patrick Mahomes. Now, I think what we have to add is context for the situation Patrick Mahomes entered into. What I mean by that is I think Mahomes would prove that he's the best quarterback we've seen through 5 years almost ever in the National Football League, no matter where he landed. But you can't ignore the benefit of the structure that was in place in Kansas City, a team that was ready to win at the moment. They made the playoffs when he was drafted there.
And Alex Smith was playing well.
And he was playing well. They had a quarterback in front of them, and they had a quarterback guru in Andy Reid to coach him along. Like, when you look at the top of the draft board, there is not a team that has a, quote, perfect situation that is in the realm of being able to draft Bryce Young. And so when you look at the teams that have the ability or have been rumored to make moves, you're looking at the Texans, you're looking at the Colts, you're looking at the Raiders, the Panthers. Like, those are the first four teams. None of those situations are ready to win now with proven head coaches, right? Like, they're all new head coaches with teams with some of the worst records in the league that were dumpster fires, and that's why they're in the position that they're in, right? So I think that's step one. is understanding that Mahomes can be great as a standalone, but also his situation was perfect. And I think back to your point about the size that Bryce Young brings to the table, 6 foot, 190, hoping to gain more weight, but still only going to be 6 foot. I think that's something where you really have to ask yourself, can the Texans, if they draft him, can the Colts, if they draft him, can they protect this player to allow him to develop? Because I think there's one thing that Justin Fields has proven since he's been here in Chicago. He is tough.
Mm-hmm.
That dude is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And has he been banged up? Yes. Has he dealt with injuries? Yes. And he gets out there and he either plays through it, or he's not out for that long so far. And
Bryce is the same way. Bryce got hit too a lot, and he was out there playing.
But he is much smaller than Justin Fields
his frame is small. Yeah,
Therefore,
absolutely.
to me, I would be concerned because the difference between Bryce Young and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes had a great setup he was entering into. He didn't have to play as a rookie. He when he entered the game as a starter, he had weapons offensively. He had an offensive line ready to go. He had a Hall of Fame tight end as a safety valve. He had it all in front of him. And that's where I continue to hear things that are like, he's like Mahomes. It's like, hold on. You have to understand that there's context that Mahomes entered the perfect spot to accomplish this. Now, we could also add, as being college football fans, as being guys who enjoy reading about recruiting, we follow our two teams. You follow Alabama. I follow USC. That Bryce Young was a name that we were aware about when he was like 16.
Yeah.
He was a kid in California that every top school wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It was a major problem for USC at the time that Clay Helton had no chance to get Bryce Young to stay at USC, to stay in California. He chose to go to Alabama, which used to be back in the day something crazy that, you know, until Tua and until Bryce Young, there was no pipeline from Southern California to Alabama. Now there is. The best quarterback to go to Alabama. With that being said, Bryce Young is the real deal. Like, he can make all of the throws. He is tough. He is quick with his decisions. And I think a part of that is, go back to the Tennessee game. Alabama lost that game, but Bryce was dealing, especially in the second half. And he was under pressure, and he was making smart throws, and he was able to move in the pocket to manipulate the defense to be available to find guys down the field to make plays, to stick in that game, even though they lost at the end. He played a great game against Tennessee, even though they lost that game on the road in this last college football season.
Listen, Alabama's problem this year was not Bryce Young or the offense. That was a defensive problem. Look at the games that they lost. They gave up a ton of points to Texas A&M. They gave up a ton of points to Tennessee. They gave up a ton of points to Texas. Like, the games that they were close to or almost lost or did lose, they were giving up a bunch of points. This wasn't like a 10-3 game where the offense was struggling. You know what I mean? So you're also looking at a situation where whether or not teams believe in Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Will Levis, those teams that we mentioned, the Texans that need a quarterback, the Colts that need a quarterback, the Panthers that need a quarterback, they all have new coaching staffs. They all are going to believe that they can make whatever player. Like, you bring in a new coaching staff, you bring in a new GM, you bring in all this new stuff. Your fan base wants a new quarterback. And Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, is on record saying, like, he likes Bryce Young.
He wants a quarterback.
They're sick of doing this veteran quarterback BS. They want a quarterback to develop and turn into a franchise player. So I just don't see the benefit. Now, I do see the benefit of letting people believe that you might trade him. I do see the benefit of saying, hey, we might keep that. I want to see polls at the Alabama Pro Day. I want to see polls at the Ohio State Pro Day. Just looking, just being like, well, maybe, because that adds value to that first pick.
I'm willing to concede that it's possible that Bryce Young will be a better quarterback than Justin Fields. I am not willing to concede that he will be such a better quarterback than Justin Fields that you absolutely have to pick him over Fields. Does that make sense? Like, I think the potential for Fields to grow into a great quarterback is there. And I think he has the ability to become an elite quarterback at some point in his career. I don't think the difference between the two players is worth the gamble on the smaller player when you already have a guy who's proven to be durable.
Now, devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate. What if the Colts call you or the Texans call you and say, we'll give you 2, 12, and a first next year?
For Justin Fields?
Mm-hmm.
And you're giving up 1? So you go to 2, so you don't get Bryce Young.
No, but they're drafting, you're trading Justin Fields. So they're not going to take.
Okay, so I get what you're, yeah.
So they would probably take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. You could get Bryce Young. You'd have 12 and a 2024 pick next year.
My response would be what I just said. My response would be, I'm willing to suggest that it's possible that Bryce Young will be better than Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be better by such a wide margin that it's worth trading Fields.
Yeah.
With that said, my answer probably contradicts what that thinking suggests, right? Because that thinking would then suggest take Bryce Young and get the more assets.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if we
but
both
what
watched
if you
both
got
of
to
them,
keep? What if you got to keep the first pick though?
Well, you're getting Bryce Young either way, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, you'd have 3 picks in the first round as opposed to 2 first.
That's
two
fair.
Firsts, you know what
Jim
I mean?
and Crystal Lake, you're on ESPN 1000.
Jim,
Hey guys, so
what's up?
So I believe you guys are referring to the guy's comments. I can't remember his name, Todd McShay, maybe. Who
Yes.
said,
Mm-hmm.
in what he said, he used the word explore the opportunity of getting rid of Justin Fields and you getting Bryce Young. So I believe you guys are forgetting about that he used the word explore. So when you go out at night, you go to the local tavern, you explore your opportunities, if you know what I mean. It doesn't mean you actually come up with an opportunity. But I got one more point that why doesn't, I'm sorry, I just put a piece of beef jerky in my mouth.
Oh, nice.
But
What flavor?
it's the original, but it's
Ridge?
Like it.
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, it's natural beef jerky,
Chewy?
but the fresh thyme
Love
beef
it.
jerky is out of this world.
Yeah.
It's good.
Good. So I
But,
can taste it
It's
right
a
now.
breakfast of champions right there, Jim.
Chew on some
I know, I'm
jerky.
telling you. So I usually prefer peppered, but today I'm just feeling a little original.
Yeah.
But why don't we, all these talk about Bryce Young, there's no way the Bears are going to do it. But why don't they just draft him? Use the first pick, draft him, take him to camp, run them both against Justin Fields and him, and, play it out and see which one, and then dice one of them, trade one of them a year from now.
Well,
so they could do that, but I know that's it's a ridiculous option. But
Yeah.
why not do that to see which one compares?
Thanks for the call, Jim. Appreciate it. Enjoy the jerky.
Rock on. Rock on.
There we go. There's Jim and Crystal Lake.
My problem with that is you're only like, if you do that, it's supply and demand, right? Like right now, that number 1 pick is the most demand right now between whether it's the Texans, the Colts, the Bears use it, the Panthers. Let's see if the Raiders want it, whoever wants it, right? If you draft Bryce Young and have him compete with Justin Fields and you say, all right, well, we'll pick 1 and then we'll just wait for a quarterback to get hurt, then you're only negotiating with 1 team and you don't have the leverage. Whereas now you can play like we did the exercise yesterday where I'm calling the Colts and saying,
Sure.
give me this. And then I call the Texans and I say
No
the Colts
doubt.
are going to give me this. And then I call the Panthers and say, these 2 teams are willing to give this up. You're playing those teams against each other. Whereas if you draft him and wait, you're only negotiating with let's say the 49ers get Aaron Rodgers for some way and he gets hurt. And then you're like, okay, well, we're just negotiating with 1 team as opposed to playing each other against each other and getting like a haul.
There's
for
more
him.
leverage in that situation.
Yeah.